100 yards, slight right onto causeway, A312. Take the next right onto causeway, A312. Continue on A312 for 1 mile.
As a result of this 54% increase.
Fuel poverty.
Faced with those facts, people like Sarah Olney, Ed Davey, another one, absolutely obsessed with this net zero nonsense. They still will not relent on these charges.
I mean, it's not nonsense, is it, Mark? In the sense, I mean, I'm with you in the sense I think we should pause net zero, the drive to net zero, because I think we should not subject families who can't afford their bills now to even more grief. But we do have to do our bit, don't we, to try to reduce climate change and global warming?
But why does this country not have to do its bit, but just go to the extremes? We know that around the world, countries such as India, China, who are contributing to this so-called climate emergency.
Well, they're causing a lot of it.
Well, exactly. But why do people in this country have to suffer more than anybody else? There's nowhere else in Europe whose energy prices have gone up 54%. Let's get that right, okay?
Yeah.
People are going to die as a result of this. Yeah. And yet, they're mainly left-wingers, you know, your Sadiq Khans, Labour, the Liberals. They're absolutely obsessed with crippling the public with this. I don't speak to anybody who talks about climate change. It's not even on their agenda. They haven't got the money to think about it. What they're thinking about is next week, next month, next year, actually surviving, living. Okay?
Yeah. All right, Mark, well, thank you for that. Mark, just for that, I'm just going to move on. A lot of people want to get in. Just to be fair, however, Mark's criticising Labour and the Lib Dems. The Tories are not cutting the green taxes, and I've argued with government ministers about this. They're not doing it either, and they could, and I think they should, and I think it would be popular politically. I also think it's the right thing to do practically, because I think the job of the government is to protect as many families as they can from poverty. Look, nobody in this country asked for this fuel crisis. Nobody knew there was going to be a war in Ukraine. Nobody knew there was going to be a global pandemic, and part of the problem with fuel prices is, as countries have emerged from the fuel pandemic, there's been surging demand for oil and gas as economies recover. It's all added up to a perfect storm, but that's why I think ministers should be doing more. They're just not listening to the public. Let's go to Tom, who's calling from Northampton. Tom, I think you're a new caller.
I am, yes. Yeah. Hi,
hello, Tom.
Andrew.
Well, what do you think?
Just echoing one of the previous callers, you know, if you're talking about a 25% cut for the immediately now from that investment for future years on the more environmental fuels, you're never going to move forward. This problem's always going to be there.
What's the answer, Tom? What's the answer?
Well, look, immediately, that would be the answer. You've got to buckle down sometimes when times are hard and get on with it.
Yeah, all right, Tom, but that's not so easy if you've got 5 kids and you're a single parent.
In a quarter of a mile, at Wagoners Roundabout, take the second exit onto the Parkway, A312.
Make these changes now.
All right, Tom, well, thank you for that. Just want to share with you figures from the Office of National Statistics showed excess winter debt in England and Wales last year, 2020 that year is, I'm afraid, were 28,300 more than the previous winter, of which it's estimated 8,500 of those deaths were due to cold homes. Cold homes killed, roughly, that's what we think, 8,500 people in civilised, wealthy United Kingdom. How does that happen? Well, it's going to get a lot worse, isn't it, unless they do something about it. I'm asking you what you think. How's it going to be for your own finances? What precautions, what measures are you taking to try to mitigate the impact on your family? And do you think one way of doing it is my way? Get rid of those green taxes for at least a year. All of them. 25% of your bill, done, dusted. The government will lose revenue. Well, they can make money.
Exit the roundabout onto the parkway.
Tell me what you think. 0345.
Continue on the parkway for 1 mile.
Text 84850. You're listening to me, Andrew Pierce. It's LBC Friday night. The time is 6:30. Headlines. Amelia Cox.
Labour says the government doesn't get the scale of the cost of living crisis. The Chancellor Rishi Sunak said to be looking daily at the impact it's having after the energy price cap was lifted. Criminal and civil investigations have started into the decision by P&O Ferries to sack nearly 800 workers without notice. Bosses say they had no other option but to replace them with cheaper agency workers amid big financial issues. And the draw for the World Cup has been made, and there could be an all-UK game. England are in Group B with Iran, the USA and the winners of the European playoffs between Wales, Scotland and Ukraine. LBC weather: drier in Scotland tonight, rain moving across Northern Ireland, Western England and Wales, a low of -5 degrees.
LBC.
I'm David Lammy here on LBC. What I'm seeing are people overly dependent on credit cards and debt to finance their living. I would not be bringing in the national insurance hike, and we would definitely need a windfall tax to help people properly pay their fuel bills. Join me, David Lammy, tomorrow from 4. Listen on your radio and on...
In a quarter of a mile, at Cranford Parkway interchange, take the second exit onto the M4 slip road to Heathrow Airport, M25.
Simply nothing else like it. Disney's award-winning musical, The Lion King, at London's Lyceum Theatre. See it now. Remember it forever.
So, you offer rewards, you have extra time to pay suppliers, and you even have retail discounts. Yes, it's a rather impressive CV, Mr.
Card. It's Mr. Card.
Ah, yes, you are a card, aren't you?
An Amex Business Gold Card, to be specific, Mum.
The job's yours.
Thanks.
The American Express Business Gold Card. The card that works harder for your business. Search Amex Business Gold. Terms apply. 18 plus, subject to approval. No annual fee in first year. £175 thereafter. Basic card also available with no annual fee or benefits.
Grow flowers, neighbours will nosy over the fence at. 25-litre bag of Wix topsoil was £4, now £3. Be house proud with Wix. Terms apply.
Many people struggle with...
Exit the roundabout onto the slip road.
Told them nothing can be done.
In a quarter of a mile, merge onto M4.
And your confidence with our award-winning Smile in a Day dental implant treatment. Book your consultation today. Visit smileinaday.co.uk.
Not all stories online can be trusted. Some are designed to reel you in with misleading facts, extreme opinions, or even outright lies. So, before you share a story with friends or family online, check. Are the spelling errors? Do images or videos look edited? Do the facts seem believable? Do they come from reliable sources? Don't get caught by false information. Take care with what you share. Visit sharechecklist.gov.uk to find out more.
Andrew Pierce on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
We're talking about the energy crisis, and of course part of it is to do Russian gas is still flowing to Europe despite threats. There's been rows over whether the bill should be paid in the Russian currency or international currency, and we've heard too that President Biden is planning to flood the market, which sounds welcome, with an unprecedented release of oil reserves in an effort to bring down high fuel costs. Dr. Aura Sabadas is Senior Energy Market Specialist at ICIS and Research Fellow at the Energy Community. Dr. Sabadas, hello to you.
Hello.
Where do we start here? Russian gas still flowing to Europe, despite the fact there's a war, despite the fact it means the money that countries are paying for that gas could be directly or indirectly bankrolling Putin's illegal war in Ukraine.
That's right, yes. Many people have raised concerns about the fact that a lot of money is being paid for this gas that is flowing into Europe, and that, of course, is going straight to the Russian state budget and potentially bankrolling this war. You also mentioned the fact that Putin has now changed the payments and that he now wants European companies, or had specifically said that European companies should be paying in rubles. There was a small change, well, I would say a change of plan yesterday, where he said that there will be, that the European companies will have to set up bank accounts. Essentially, they will be paying in euros or in dollars, and then euros and dollars will be converted into rubles. So this is really what's happening. It's not going to kick in. So this new arrangement is not going to kick in until May, when Gazprom, so this is the company that is supplying the gas, will be issuing the invoices, and then the payments will have to be made by around the 18th of the month, so 18th of May, for gas supplied in April. And this is the reason why we haven't seen any curtailments. The gas is still flowing, and the arrangement will only kick in next month.
In Britain, of course, I think I'm right, Dr. Sabadas, that we say only, but we use around 4% of our gas comes from Russia.
That's right. Britain does not rely hugely on Russian gas, as for example Germany or Italy. But I mean, ultimately, whatever happens on the continent will impact the market, because these markets are not islands. They're not isolated. So whatever happens in one part of Europe, or even
in a quarter of a mile, keep right to stay on M4.
On the market here in the UK.
What impact is it going to make, do you think, the President of the United States ordering a major release of oil from America's reserves, talking of up to 180 million barrels of oil over 6 months, the largest since the reserve was...
Keep right to stay on M4.
Prices have already dropped a little. Is it going to make a big difference in your view?
Well, of course, that has an impact, and any changes in supply and demand, or even at the political level, is having an impact. Now, going forward, we also need to see what will happen to on other fronts, like, for example, negotiations with Iran, whether Iran will be able to, whether sanctions will be lifted against Iran, and then Iran can join the markets and sell to the market. So really, there are many factors at play here, and the volatility on the market is extraordinary, both on oil and gas.
We've been talking a little about the North Sea oil fields. There's talk that one of the reasons ministers say they don't want a windfall tax on the energy companies is because they want perhaps the oil companies to start reopening some oil fields in the North Sea, or to start exploring for more gas and oil. How quickly could that, if that happened, how quickly could those supplies come into the British market or the international market?
Well, first of all, we need to see some firm commitments on that front, in terms of a political message. Is it really going to happen? Is it, how committed is the government to lifting any restrictions, or to allowing, or to encouraging, even I would say it's a better word, to encourage companies to start producing. But certainly, if you do the maths as far as gas is concerned, you will see that even with more LNG coming to the market, or even with some savings in terms of energy efficiency or deploying renewables, it's still not going to be enough. So I wouldn't be surprised if the UK and other countries that have been looking at potentially exploring more gas, and I would include here shale gas as well.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. Just a lot of people will say in this programme, Doctor, what about fracking? And we know those 2 wells that were due to be sealed in Lancashire.
In a quarter of a mile, keep right to stay on M4.
Great reserves there. Again, but it's presumably not a very short-term solution, and what people struggling with their bills that want is a short-term fix.
No, absolutely. I mean, I don't think there is a short-term fix, unfortunately. Prices are very high.
Keep right to stay on M4.
Volatility in the market is likely to create probably more difficulties for end consumers.
Continue on M4 for 4 miles.
repeatedly raised, among analysts analysts have been pointing, well, why is it that we accept to get shale gas from the US where maybe standards are not as high, and we don't want to consider lifting bans on shale gas production in Europe and in the UK as well. So really there's also sort of ethical discussion here in terms of shale gas and in terms of whether European countries should revisit the initial discussion on shale gas and whether shale gas should in fact be allowed or not.
Very, very interesting. That's Dr. Aura Savada. She's Senior Energy Market Specialist at ICIS, and she's a Research Fellow at the Energy Community. Well, there you are. There's some pretty interesting conversations there. Yes, of course, we can start re-exploring North Sea oil and North Sea oil gas fields, but it's not short-term. We need a short-term solution, don't we, for the fact that bills are going up right now. 54% right now, from today. A lot of the websites for oil energy companies collapsed as people tried to get their bill in so that they get their latest bill will be before the cap is lifted. And of course, the advice from most people is don't bother switching your companies at the moment. You just got to wait for the market to settle down. What's the answer? How should we try and reduce bills? I've said it again, get rid of those green taxes, even if it's only for 6 months or a year. I would do it for a year. David is calling from Rayleigh in Essex. David, hello. I think you might be a first-time caller.
I am indeed.
Well, you're very welcome.
Thank you. I think you make a very powerful point in relation to the removal of the 25% green energy tax. But the problem, one of the problems about it is that it wouldn't be targeted. It would benefit the wealthy as well as the poor. I think there's a possible compromise being a reduction of the 25% for a limited period, but I would do that in association with an uplift of or retrieval of the £1,000 uplift in universal credit. But I'd also look at the windfall tax, because these oil companies are making a lot of money, and with the cash that is around, then their shareholders will...
In 2 miles, at junction 6, take the A355 exit to Slough Central.
Going back into the government and relieving the condition of the poorest in society.
Yeah, no, what you'd have to make sure, David, is because we've been here before with governments. Oh yes, they said national insurance, that was all to raise money for the NHS. Well, it doesn't. It just disappears into a black hole. The government said the reason they're raising national insurance is to alleviate the NHS waiting list crisis. Is it? Will they see it? Some of the money is also supposed to be going to help social care, but not for 3 or 4 years. You never can be quite sure that when the money pours into the exchequer, it doesn't go off and get used for something quite different.
I think that's why you do make a good point, because it's immediate. It can take effect pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Whereas the other measures will, obviously, there will be some delay in them. But I think the uplift of, or the return of the...
Yeah, the £20 a week, yeah, I get that.
Yeah, that could be more immediate as well.
All right, David, well, thank you very much. David, first-time caller here. Always welcome first-time callers. All callers very welcome here on LBC. We're going to carry on taking your calls. Now, Kit is calling from Tulse Hill in South London. Kit, I think you're a new caller too.
That's correct, Andrew. Thanks for taking my call.
No, pleasure. You're very welcome. What do you want? What's your view, Kit?
So I've just got a couple of points,
yeah.
Andrew. I think the first one is, I'm afraid, each generation has something that they have to sort of face up to, and I think our generation is going through that sort of gritty time at the moment. I mean, my wife and I, we literally have the heating on for half an hour in the morning and about an hour and a half in the evening, and we basically sit, in the evening, if we're watching TV, for instance, we'll just sit in our sleeping bags, and our house is literally freezing.
Gosh.
But, that's what we do.
Yeah.
And
is it a big house? Do you live in a big house?
Yeah, I do. It's a big, old, rattly house.
Yeah.
I've had 4 kids.
Right.
They've just about left home now.
Yeah.
And,
in a 1/4 mile, at junction 6, take the A355 exit to Slough Central.
Which is the government has basically been asleep at the wheel for a very long time. And one of the things which this country has utterly failed to do in its old housing stock is invest in insulation properly.
Yeah.
Exit at junction 6.
Compare us with the continent, homes that are properly insulated for a very long time now. We have done absolutely
In a
nothing
quarter of a
about it.
mile, at the roundabout, take the third exit onto Tons Lane, A355.
We will rebate anyone's tax if they invest in insulation in their house, which is what they do in Switzerland.
Yeah, good
And
talk.
we so often fail to look at best-in-class policies around the world and work out what will be good for our country as a result of it.
Yeah.
And, we have been sitting on this very poorly insulated housing stock. Now, because you look at London, for instance, I mean, the vast majority of it was built at least 100 years ago, if not 130. And, it leaks like a sieve. So the bottom line is that you are going to have to, you are heating these houses with hydrocarbon fuels at the moment. So you are polluting the environment, and you're having to do so more because they're so inefficient. And if you have an efficient home, you could probably use much less heating, and save a great deal of fuel in the process, and a great deal of cost.
Very interesting
So
idea.
we really do need to insulate our homes. It's incredibly important.
Kit, stay warm. Get cosy in that sleeping bag tonight in front of your TV. Make a hot drink. That always helps, of course. That's Kit calling from Tulse Hill, living in an old
Exit
house
the
with big
roundabout
house.
onto
And
Tons
people,
Lane.
will not be entitled to the council tax rebate. It's up to homes A to D because the house will be valued at, but there'll be big old
In a
houses
quarter of a
like
mile,
this.
slight left towards Sippenham Lane.
By people on fixed incomes who might have bought the house 50 years ago when they were probably £2,000 or £3,000. It's catch-22, isn't it? What's your view? How do we get forward? How do we help families? I've made a suggestion. What's yours? 0345 6060 973. Time is now 6:47.
This is LBC.
This is the new way to sell your car from home. This is the Motorway. Motorway's trusted dealers compete to give you the best price, meaning you could get more
Slight left towards Sippenham Lane.
And once you've found the perfect price, you can sit back and relax. We'll pick your car up from home for free. It really is that simple. Get your quote and get started at Motorway.
Continue for 1.5 miles.